Hi, welcome to JJ's Productions, and I've got a list video. Yay! Alright, so what I'm going to do is it's the top 10 Zetas that I haven't already Zeted. So, let's just switch to my account here, which is Crimson. And as you're going to see, I have got a few Zetas. I've got Zalbar, Mission, Beers. You know, there are a few interesting Zetas, shall we call them. So what I'm looking at is between both this account Crimson and my other account, which ones haven't I Zeted yet that I wish I had. So to be clear, that isn't a case of, oh, this Zeta is a must-have Zeta. So for instance, let's just scroll down a second. Down here we've got Mr. Revan. And right now I'm hoarding Zetas because I want all his Zetas. So if you're arguing which Zetas haven't I haven't got them three. But they won't be on this list for the simple reason I haven't got Revan yet. Equally, if I've got a character, but they're not at level 85 yet, like General Grievous, I would like Metalloid Monstrosity, but I am not going to have that on the list for the simple reason on neither of my accounts is he level 85 and capable of having a Zeta. So this is purely characters who have been primed for a Zeta for a while, but I have just got nowhere near to giving them the Zeta. So, without further ado, let's get into the list. Okay, so starting off, we're going to have to go down the list a bit, but it's a Night Sister we're going to be looking at. And I've been working on my Night Sisters for a while, but I have never got round to doing a Zeta for Old Daka. So, serve again. If we look at level 1 to begin with, when another ally is defeated, Old Daka gains 35% turn meter, and the cooldown of Chant of Resurrection is reduced by 1. When another ally is revived while Old Daka is active, the revived ally gains 5% turn meter and gains offense up and defense up for 2 turns. So, the general gist, the ability is that you gain turn meter for each increase in the ability mats, and the final one, which is the Zeta, when another ally is revived while Old Daka is active, Old Daka gains plus 10% max health, stacking until the end of the encounter. So, anyone who's come across Old Daka, you'll notice that in battle she can be quite difficult. For instance, if I just back out of the character screen for a second and go into Squad Arena, I may get lucky, but I have been coming up against Night Sisters quite a fair bit. So let's see. So, as you can see here, we've got Old Daka here. She's got the Servgan Zeta. So, the idea is 10% max health stacking until the end of the encounter. So if we go into her stats for this one here, 27,258 health to begin with. So that means every time she revives an ally, she's going to gain 2,726 health. Now that might not seem like a lot, but when you think, first one goes up to 30, then it goes up to, assuming it takes the current max health, so it'd be 33,000, then it goes up to 3,630, and I'm going to stop there before making an arse of myself. But the idea is, you're just going to make it harder to kill her by actually killing her allies. I don't believe it's the most important Zeta out of the Night Sisters, but if you say to me, you've got a choice of filling out a faction, I would definitely take this Zeta because yeah, it's not imperative, but I think it'd be great in the raids. I think as far as making a Night Sister team more of a nightmare to deal with, it's certainly great. So yeah, I can't help but like that one, and thank you to Stealth Walker for just allowing me to demonstrate that. Anyway, moving on to number 9 in this list. We're going to have to go down the list again because this is a JT Zeta again, but it's someone who I have actually had for a while, but I haven't actually been able to do anything with simply because it's been a pain to farm her. Emphys Nest. So everyone knows what Nest is like, but just to be clear, with level 1, Nest has plus 80% counter chance. Whenever Nest is damaged by an attack, she gains plus 10% critical chance and 20% bonus protection stacking. This bonus protection increases by an additional 20% each time. Both bonuses expire and reset at the end of her next turn. Whenever an enemy loses a buff or debuff, Nest gains plus 2% stacking critical damage until the end of the encounter. So go all the way to level 8 where she's been gaining bits of critical chance and protection. And essentially the only difference with the Zeta is that you can now ignore taunt and you get 2% health steal stacking when an enemy loses a buff or debuff. So essentially, she's going to be counter-attacking, she's going to be cleansing buff, she's going to be ignoring taunt, so she can go around and knock out who she wants and give them a tap, and she'll regain health from it. I can't say any more about this, it's just such a great Zeta. I mean, I really wish I'd worked more on Nest already. She's going to be so great when I get her maxed out, just for the silly little teams that you come up against Grand Arena, or on the opposite end, putting her on defense and just putting her in, say, a Night Sister team, and just seeing if people get caught out by it. So I'm really looking forward to unlocking her properly, because on JT she's about 2-star, I think. I don't think I've even got to 3 stars yet. She's gear 7, so I do try and throw her in battle every now and again, and she just doesn't do much. So I need to get her fired up, but she's already at level 7 on all of these, so I am waiting to see what happens next with her. Anyway, moving on to number 8, and we're actually going on to one I've got on both accounts, and that might be a sign of how it's not necessarily important, this, but it is a good Zeta, and that's Boba Fett. So with Boba Fett, what we're going to be looking at is Bounty Hunter's Resolve, and essentially, it's a pretty good ability. If we go to level 7, at the start of the battle and whenever he defeats an enemy, he gains Bounty Hunter's Resolve until he's defeated. Bounty Hunter's Resolve is essentially ignoring taunt, and when he's defeated he revives at 100% health, which can't be dispel, prevented, or stacked. Anyone who's played the game knows that, but just to be clear. The Zeta, when you defeat someone, you get 100% protection recovery. What's not to like about that? I'll admit, I think this caught me out once in Grand Arena. I didn't know what the Zeta did exactly. I thought it was connected to Execute rather than Bounty Hunter's Resolve. And yeah, I just took it for granted. So suddenly I thought, oh yeah, he's on, or on Boba 2, or not on Boba 1. So if he taps me, it won't matter. And yeah, I got torn apart. So it was a bit of a bad one to miss that, but I've never got round to using the Zeta. I just think it's not the most necessary out of the Bounty Hunters. For me, both of Bosk's, maybe even both of Jango's are more important. But yeah, I've just never got round to it. So if someone says to me, get Bounty Hunter's Resolve for Boba, I would do it, but it's not top of my list. Okay, so we're going to move on now. We're on to number 7, and this is someone on this account again. And it's someone I haven't worked on too much, but I was tempted to Zeta earlier on, and that's Juhani. And we're looking at Cathar Resilience. I don't know if I've said that right. So at level 7, Juhani recovers 20% max health at the beginning of each of her turns. While taunting, Juhani has 35% counter chance. When Juhani drops below 100% health, she gains stealth for 2 turns. If Juhani is taunting when this condition is met, she loses taunt. So at this level already, she will essentially drop a taunt and go under stealth if she drops below 100% health. So it's a good way of just making sure that she's having some self-recovery. However, the Zeta is quite interesting. So if we go into it, it says, when Juhani drops below 100% health, she recovers 5% protection for each active Jedi or Old Republic ally, then gains offense up and health steal up for 2 turns. So not only is she going to get more damage, she's also going to be getting health back on her attacks. So yes, it might be a very self-serving Zeta in the sense that it isn't going to grant this to the entire Old Republic or Jedi team, but it is a very good single-use Zeta, which is something that is a common theme amongst these. They aren't necessarily great team-building Zetas, but they are good individual Zetas that can maybe just make a unit more annoying, and this is what I want in the long run for my Old Republic. I've got Cathar Resilience as a priority Zeta for the simple reason I've got Mission, Zalbar, and Karth. So I want Cathar Resilience for my 4th Zeta in the team, and he isn't on the list because I haven't unlocked him, but I will work on Candaris's eventually. So that's the reason it's on my list. Maybe someone would disagree and say, oh, you don't need it, but right now, that's why it's there. Okay, so next up, we're going to go down again, and this is on both accounts, and we're looking at Ezra and Flourish. Now, Flourish is a very simple Zeta. It basically adds 50% damage, you gain 25% extra turn meter, and you gain defense up for 2 turns. Now, that isn't overly impressive, but when you consider that level 7, you dispel all buffs. If the enemy had no buffs, then this attack's cooldown is reduced by 1, and Ezra gains 50% turn meter. And essentially what this Zeta does, it means that you gain a quarter turn meter on the attack instead of, quarter extra turn meter. So you essentially can go again pretty much straight away. You deal double damage, or, well, not double, but half extra damage. And you get defense up, which isn't the best buff, but you know, obviously I'd personally have liked offense up, but I get the feeling that might have conflicted a bit with Sabine's Zeta. So I understand why they've gone for defense up. But I would like it if they'd rethink that, but they're not going to rework Phoenix at this point. But in general, I think it's a good Zeta. It'd deal more damage in a Jedi team, so that's why I put it on here. It's not exactly a high priority. I mean, again, this top 10 list is for characters I've got unlocked right now, but this will probably end up right down the bottom end of the list for the simple reason that, yeah, I mean, for instance, Juhani, she was behind this because it's like this, a single-use Zeta, but it could be that she ends up going ahead just for the simple reason I want the Old Republic team going. But yeah, there's a lot of flexibility with this. I mean, you could put Ezra in a Jedi team, you could put him in a Rebel team, put him in a Phoenix team, obviously, so plenty of options to go around there. Okay, so we're up to number 5 now, and what we're going to do this time is, again, it's a bit of a weird one, just for the state of where I am in the game, but T3M4, and it is Combat Logic Upgrade. Now, I could have also put Master Gearhead on this list, but I don't feel that's as important. Simple reason for this, if ever I want to do a nuke team, I will have the Zeta to actually make it function. So, for those of you who are unaware, level 7, T3M4 gains 8% potency and 8% critical hit chance stacking each time it uses an ability. However, at level 8, as you saw, there was a lot more text. Droid allies gain 8% potency and 8% critical hit chance each time T3M4 uses an ability, so spreading it to all droids. Also, droid allies add plus 8% critical damage for each debuff on the enemy team. Now, on paper that's like, okay. Well, when you think about it, this Carbonite Projector ability, he inflicts critical chance down and offense down for 2 turns, then removes turn meter. So, okay, that's 2 debuffs. Disable. Not that one, it's this one, isn't it? Essentially, I think it's Master Gearhead. It essentially gives T3M4 more chance to commit target lock. I'm just looking, yeah, there we go. At the start of his turn, he has 75% chance to inflict target lock for 2 turns on a random enemy who doesn't already have it. So, it's essentially a way of just keeping debuffs on them, which therefore increase the chance of them buffs. So, I feel like I botched that description a little bit, but again, if down the road I do want to do a nuke team, which is looking quite likely in the short term for the fact that the SEP droids are quite hard to do, and if I just go on my droids, I've got IG unlocked, although he's nowhere near ready for that sort of action. I could put Grievous in there with, say, T3. I could probably do IG-86 and maybe Droidica, I'm saying it, but maybe Chopper. You know, I haven't really thought it through. I think I've got R2 down here as well, so R2 could work, but I have got options for a nuke team, and it would be fun to do just to bulldoze my way to the top of the arena, but I'm not overly fussed about that right now. But if I decide to go down that route, I've got the option. Okay, so that was the top 6. We're getting into the top 4 now. I don't know why I described it that way, but here we go. So, at number 4, we got the Tarkin. We got the Moff Tarkin. Now he's got 2 Zetas. We've got Tighten the Grip, which I'm not particularly fussed over. Now, Callous Conviction, I am. So, at level 7, Grand Moff Tarkin gains defense equal to his potency percentage. That's pretty good. You know, you want Tarkin as potent as possible, so getting a bit of defense extra equal to the potency, pretty good. Level 8 though, and gain 20% potency per debuffed enemy. Now, on paper that doesn't mean much, because it's like, okay, so that means, say you've got 5 enemies with debuffs on them, you're going to get 100% potency for that. Okay, so that means you get 100% defense. Okay, so yeah, I can understand why that'd be easily overlooked. However, Ultimate Firepower. Deal special damage to all enemies with a 100% chance to remove 50% of their turn meter. This attack gains offense equal to double Tarkin's potency percentage. So, with Kylo's Conviction, if you can get 20% potency per debuffed enemy, then with Ultimate Firepower, you're unleashing that potency in offense on Ultimate Firepower. So it is a bit of a trade-off. You do have to pretty much have the Zeta to make Ultimate Firepower at Omega level work properly. But I do think it's worth it because Intimidation Tactics, that also increases potency, and the basic Grand Moff's attack, if you use the Omega, it gains plus 50% potency stacking until the next time Ultimate Firepower is used. So if you've seen me in Grand Arena, I've actually had a comment about this. I don't use Ultimate Firepower a lot because I like to build it up. Now, at these current levels, it's a little bit of a silly tactic by me, I will agree there. However, as far as the turn order goes, I do believe I'm doing right in the long term. Because, yes, it's not doing much now, but if I do build up this idea of Intimidation Tactics, Grand Moff's attack, and just let the potency keep building and stacking, then hopefully Ultimate Firepower will have one big attack. And if there's just a bit of damage being held back, that'll be playing off. So that's how I'm thinking, but if you disagree with my thought process on the Zeta, let me know in the comments, because this is how I interpret it. I have not had other people informing me differently, so please let me know if you've got something to say on that matter. Okay, so we're going to have a look now at number 3. So, number 3. CLS. Okay, so anyone who's seen my JT account, you'll know that I've got CLS, and I have got one Zeta on him. That's It Binds All Things. And I was having a look on Star Wars, I was looking at swgoh.gg, and apparently It Binds All Things is the most common Zeta in the game. So I was quite pleased to see that I'd got that. For the record, for those of you who don't know what this is, whenever Luke resists a detrimental effect, he recovers 5% protection, and whenever Luke inflicts a debuff, he gains 10% turn meter, and other allies gain half that amount. Nice catch-all Zeta. You don't really need to stand the leadership spot, you can use him anywhere in the team, and that still applies. So, good Zeta. Arguably one of the best. Anyway, the one I'm looking at here is Rebel Maneuvers. So, at level 7, Rebel allies have plus 50% counter chance, plus 50% defense, and plus 15% offense. Pretty good. At level 8, they also, whenever an enemy resists a detrimental effect, Rebel allies gain 5% turn meter. So, I want this because I am using full Rebel team. I'm currently using Fulcrum in the team, but I would like to trade that off for C3PO down the road. And that is definitely going to be useful when C3PO is in play, because the idea is, if C3PO tries to apply confusion on the opponents and they resist it, I'm going to gain, well, the entire team will gain 5% turn meter. So it might just be a small application, but it's something that I definitely want to have, so that when that does happen, if C3PO doesn't land a debuff, then I get the turn meter in exchange. So, very important one in the long run. For the record, if you're curious about my thoughts on call to action, not call to action, sorry, learn control. I had to remember which one it was then. It's interesting. I'm not going to say don't get it. You know, if you can get triple Zeta CLS, by all means do that. But the way I'm looking at it is, while Luke doesn't have call to action, he has plus 50% critical avoidance and 100% tenacity. It's definitely good for raids, and it'll probably make him more tankier in arena, but I am not too bothered that he hasn't got it. I mean, whenever I see this, I think, okay, it'll be good one day, but I'm not rushing out to get it. I mean, as it is, he gains 10% turn meter when another rebel ally takes damage. So, yeah, he becomes pretty fast. He has good counter chance on top of his rebel maneuvers, so you don't really need it, but I can understand if you do want to max them out. So, yeah, they're my thoughts on that one. Okay, so we're moving on to number 2 now, and this is where it is getting a little bit tight, because I've had to rewrite this list a little bit since I did the video originally. Originally, I had Kylo Ren Unmasked as my number 1, and the reason he didn't survive long there, if I just pop him up, is because I've unlocked him on JT. I've unlocked the Zeta on JT, and for the record, that was plus 15% critical chance, plus 5 speed, plus 5% turn meter gain, And whenever a First Order ally gains the status effect, they recover 5% health and 5% protection. So, great all leadership for the First Order. I want to try and get BB-8 to 7-star, so that is why that is how it is. However, I've still got 2 more to choose from my original list, and yeah, it's quite fun having to work these ones out because these are characters that I've got unlocked, but I was a bit tentative about actually giving the Zetas out. So, my runner-up on this list. Drum roll, please. Boba Fett. And I'm giving it to Notorious Reputation. The reason being, did I say Bobba or did I say Jango? Either way. At level 7, Jango Fett has 100% defense penetration and plus 50% max health. Very good. At the start of battle, and whenever he defeats an enemy, Jango recovers 100% protection and gains Bounty Hunter's Resolve. And I'm not reading that out again. At level 8, nice and simple, enemies defeated on his turn cannot be revived. So, if you put him in a Night Sister team, poof, they're gone. It's like having an Execute on your team without having to actually use Execute every time. You can use a basic, you can use a special, doesn't matter, you kill them on a turn, they're dead, bar the zombie. So that's the reason I want it. I want a strong counter to Night Sisters, and to be honest, I think if I could use this more in Grand Arena on defense, I think it'd put people off because I do believe that it's a tricky Zeta to move around. I know Jedi training raid teams struggle against it, so I'm thinking if that's the sort of level that it struggles against, you know, how good can it be? So, yeah, I'm quite happy. That will probably be my next Zeta after the one I'm going to give as number 1. And I did give a little teaser what my number 1 was. I did get them a little mixed up when I was doing this, but it's going to be a Sarge Ventress. Now, I've unlocked her on JT, and on there I have already given her Rampage. So at level 7, she has all that good stuff. I'm not going to read it out, to be honest, because it isn't the one in question. But she gains a load of good offense-based bonuses with that Zeta. So, the one I'm going to give it is Night Sister Swiftness. Now, the reason I was debating this is because I've got Talzin's leadership Zeted. So I was thinking, should I do both Zetas? And the simple reason is, I think this will be better in the raids for me. So if I just read level 7 out, Night Sisters have 30 speed, not 30%, just plus 30 speed, plus 30% offense, and have a 25% chance to remove 10% turn meter whenever they damage an enemy. It can't be resisted. However, at level 8. So, we now have an extra plus 25% turn meter reduction chance, which takes us up to 50% chance. They have 10% turn meter reduction, so it's gone up to 20% turn meter. And Night Sisters gain 50% turn meter whenever they fall below 100% health. So you try and hit them, and you get a good blow and knock them below 100%, they'll be pretty much ready to take a turn. So I do like it as a Zeta. I think in the raid it'll be very good. Maybe I'm going to have to work out how to use it exactly. I know that it might be a little rash jumping in with it. But besides just the raid functionality, I do like the idea that in Grand Arena I've now got 2 leadership Zetas for Night Sisters. So I can actually decide on the spot whether I'm going to do Talzin or a Sarge lead. Now, follow that up, I will eventually have to give Talzin a unique Plague Bearer, but it's not the most urgent one, I don't feel. So I'm just going to sit back and watch when I give a Sarge leadership Zeta and just see how it goes for a while before thinking about putting one on Mother Talzin. But that is actually the list. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have something scrolling down here, and it's going to be essentially the other options for Zetas that I've got. So there are quite a few on the list. I am curious what people think. I don't believe there was anything obvious that I missed out as far as something that is like, wow, how have you not thought of Zeta in that yet? But there might be one that you might disagree with, like something that should have been on the list that what didn't end up on there. So if you see one, hit the comments, just say why you believe that Zeta should have made the list instead of something that was already on here. So other than that, thank you very much for watching, folks. I'm not doing the end card just for the fact that I haven't got one lined up this time, but thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now, folks.